Hi everyone, Nigel Saunders here. It is Ta Prohm temple time. I'm going to plant the temple with ficus trees growing around it. It should be quite exciting. I do need to work on the temple a bit more before I get it in the pot. The temple has been outside, and as you can see, it's getting all kinds of natural weathering on it. There is some cracking. One of the cement pieces here has cracks through it. Some of the figurines have a few cracks in them. I'm not too worried about that. That's just part of the natural aging process. I do, however, have to re-cement the top of the temple onto the bottom. It's separated, and I'll show you that. Like that. You can see it's hollow inside, and the temple here is also hollow. So I may reinforce this joint, putting some rebar in here or some wire and cementing it from the inside. So I'll get it into the greenhouse and begin the work. I'm going to begin the work at the back of the temple. I have a piece sticking out. I was originally going to have these entranceways around the back, but I don't really need to show the back of the planting. With this piece on, it doesn't fit in the pot very well, so I'm going to cut that off, and the back will just be sort of plain like this, because you'll never really see the back of it anyway. So that's what I need to do. I need to get a hacksaw and cut this tab off the back of the temple. So here I go. Alright, I am ready. I've got an offset hacksaw. I don't know how easy this will be. I do have some reinforcing mesh in the cement, so I might be cutting through both cement and metal. So here I go. Whew, that's hard work. I'm getting there though. There it goes. Bang. Whew, nice. So it broke off the last little piece, but that's okay. It just chipped a little bit on the bottom. Yeah, that is. So I'll save that. I may use these blocks to go underneath the temple to raise it up a bit. So I'll get out the pot now. Here is the pot I'll be planting the temple in. It's not the ideal pot, but it's the only one I have that would fit the temple. It's okay. It's you know, a decent pot to put the temple in. I think I would prefer something more of a darker color or a gray color. But this will do for phase one of this planting. It'll get the temple planted, the trees established on the temple, and I can look for a pot in the upcoming years, so when I do go to repot it, I'll have even a better pot. Alright, I'll try the temple out in the pot now and see how it fits. So this is the back of the temple and the front of the pot. And I'll shift it back. Well, that's better. You can see I have some room at the front of the temple now. It's kind of pushed to the back of the pot. So the next thing I have to solve is I need to lift the temple up so the bottom of the temple is level with the lip of the pot, or at least close, maybe just slightly below. So I have a couple of options. I could make like a wooden base for the temple to sit on to raise it up. That might be a good idea, like maybe some 2x4s underneath it, blocks or something. Yeah, and I also have to look at the drainage holes in the pot. So right now, this drainage hole is quite clear. Let me show you that. So the drainage hole on this side is visible, but on this side it's pretty well hidden. So when I space it up, I'll have to make sure, you know, my blocks I put under the temple keep these drainage holes open so the whole planting will drain. There's a few wire tie down holes in the front here. And I'm debating, do I need to secure the temple into the pot? I think it would be a good idea. It's not that top heavy, the temple. I don't think there's any chance of it tipping or anything, but I don't want it to kind of shift around in the pot. You know, if I'm driving the car and you hit a big bump, it might lift the thing up and it might bounce around a bit. So I think it would be a good idea to secure the temple to the pot, either with wires or screws or something. I put some 2x4s underneath the temple, and it brings the height of the temple pretty well perfect with the lip of the pot. So I think that's a good spacer to use. You can see I've got the drainage holes clear each side. So these are just temporary blocks. I should probably make a base for it. Something that, you know, is very stable. It will, you know, eventually rot away, that wood, but it would take years. And by then, all the roots of the ficus will have filled the pot, and that will make the whole planting very, very stable. Here's my plan. So I've got this 2x4 underneath it, and I've got the drainage holes open. So I can make this 2x4 longer to add a bit of stability each side. And then I'll have a section out the front and the back. And that should make it very stable. And I'll screw this wood to the bottom of the temple. And that'll kind of really make it stable in the pot. And then to attach it to the pot, I'm not sure how I'll do that. I've got wire holes here. The ones at the back wouldn't be visible. Well, maybe it'll be a matter of, you know, putting, I don't know. I need soil in the pot too. Maybe what I'll do is I'll leave this 2x4 long enough that it hits the edge of the pot, and I'll shape it so it fits in there perfectly. And same with the front one. That way it stops it shifting side to side and front to back. I think that's the solution. So like an X frame underneath it, secure it to the temple, and then it'll fit in the pot and it can't slide around at all. I think that'll work. Here is my first piece of wood cut. I cut it on an angle at both ends so it matches the taper of the pot, and it fits in there really nicely. No wiggle room. So then I've got to put a piece out front and one out the back. I have got my base fitted to the pot, so it's nice and snug. There's no wiggle room. It does take up a bit of soil volume, but I think that's all right. I mean, these ficus, they'll grow aerial roots all over the place, and I'll keep it misted and humid, and I think it'll be fine. There'll be plenty of soil pockets for the roots to grow into. So the next step is to secure the temple base to this wooden frame, and there's a couple of ways I could do it. I could drill in from below and screw it to the base, but I don't really want to do that because I think it's going to cause cracking. You can see right here that there's a fine crack along the top of the roof here. There's a crack through this sprite's shoulder. This sprite has some cracking. So it's a natural event or a natural occurrence. It's definitely going to crack this temple through the years, but It is supposed to look like temple ruins, and someday I'm hoping, you know, all the aerial roots grow over and it kind of holds it all together. It'll be an interesting experiment. I'm going to place the temple on the base here, and I'm thinking of using screws just to hold it down. I'll show you what I mean in a second. So I was thinking of maybe putting screws into the wood with the head sticking up, so it kind of locks the temple into position. So you can still lift the temple out, but it can't shift around at all. I think that would be good. You know, the other possibility is to drill holes through the base and then screw it down to the wood. But now I've got to think, do I want the temple planted symmetrically in the pot? Let's have a look out front. Here's the front of the temple. I can't see any benefit having it offset. You know, unless I had, you know, one big tree on one side, you might want to shift it over a bit. If I do offset it in the pot, it'll be very, very subtle. One that you wouldn't even notice if you looked at it. But I think symmetrical is going to be fine. I'll have a, you know, my tallest tree here and some smaller trees here. So I think the whole composition will be balanced in the end. So I think I'll keep the temple in the middle of the pot. I think what I'll do is I'm going to put some screws into the wood here so the heads kind of butt up against the concrete, and that should hold it in place. It won't be able to twist or shift around, and yet I still should be able to lift the temple up vertically if I need to. I'm going to drill some holes for the screws, so I'll put one here. One here. Just crumbled away part of the temple there. And over on the far side, put the screws in now, and that should hold the temple in place. So I'm just leaving the screw heads stick up a bit, so they're kind of like locating pins. Yeah, that's what I'll have to do. I'll have to find a bit of a shim to put under there. Maybe a wooden shingle or something. I have got the temple in position. It's all secured on the base. So next, I need to attach the top of the temple to the bottom, and then I think I can begin positioning trees. I'm keeping both surfaces that I'll be cementing hydrated with water. That way the cement doesn't dry out instantly when you apply it to the surface. All the water doesn't soak into the existing cement. And then I can put the top on. All right, I will get my concrete and mix it in this tub. I don't know how much I'll need. Probably 3 spoonfuls will do it. Yeah, that'll be plenty. Seal that one back up. And I'll add some water. Rainwater, of course. Okay, so here goes my water. Just add a little bit at first and mix it in. So I just need a little bit more water. You can see it's a little thick. That's pretty good there. Okay, let's cement the top on the temple now. So I'll apply my cement here. And it'll ooze out, but then I'll clean it up after, because I'm putting quite a bit on here. Okay, let's go. So this is the front. There's a bump here that matches the bump on there. So here I go. Right there, that's locked in place. So you can see all the excess cement that oozed out. So I will clean that up. Starting with the spoon. And then I'll get the spray bottle and just kind of spray away the excess. Okay, and then I'll get the watering can and just rinse off all that liquefied cement. All right, here I go with the watering can. And I think that'll do.
I'm happy with the progress on the temple this morning. So I'm going to let it dry over lunch, and then I'll come back and start bare rooting and positioning the trees. Lunch is over, so I'm going to get out the trees for the planting, and I'll be using Natal ficus. They get lots of aerial roots, small leaves, and they're good growers. And they can take the cold, so yeah, really good ficus for bonsai. So in the poly house here is where I keep the ficus. So they've had some cool nights. Here it is in this pot, and you can see the aerial roots hanging down here. Yeah, they really grow aerial roots. So let's get this into the greenhouse and start working on the trees. Here is the ficus. The Natal ficus is in here. I've got a few air plants that I placed on top. I'll have to remove those. And I have a medium leaf ficus benjamina, some cuttings in here that have grown. What else do I have? There's an orchid back there. So let's start taking this pot apart. Now, if I don't get the trees planted today, I can always just put them in a bucket of water. So this tree, one of the reasons I waited so long to plant this temple is the main tree here that I was going to use had very, very bad roots. So the roots, it had two roots, big thick roots that came down and separated into a Y. So I just cut them right off and basically planted it as a cutting. So I'm hoping it has lots of fine roots coming off the trunk now that I can then place on top of the temple and guide down alongside the temple. So eventually they'll kind of fuse or attach themselves to the temple, holding the tree in place, and it should look quite miniature. All right, here I go. I will try and remove everything from the pot. Like that. Take my pot away. And now I can start raking away the soil. So this planting is quite dry. I left it dry because I knew I was going to be doing this root work. Soil looks really good and crumbly. There's a few weeds in there, but not too many. So here's the benjamina cutting. I'll get that out first. Oh, look at that. That's a beautiful root base on it. Yeah, so that is pretty well ready for planting. Yeah, good looking benjamina. Sort of a twin trunk. So I'll put that in water and save that for later, planting that in a pot. There's the cutting in a bucket of water.
All right, back to work on my Natal ficus. There's a new root that's grown there. There's a bougainvillea cutting here, and it was doing really well, but you can see it didn't grow any roots, so that's too bad. See, even some aerial roots coming off this Natal ficus, which is good because I'll want aerial roots to kind of wrap around the temple. So these trees, they've had a cool period, like all fall, and when it goes into the plant room, it's going to just grow like crazy with the warmth and humidity and the light. So I think I've been successful rooting this cutting. It's looking good so far. Lots of good fine roots that I can position around the temple. It's flat on the bottom so it can sit on top of the parts of the temple. And I did this work at one of the Toronto Bonsai Society meetings. I tested the trees into position to try and come up with a composition, and I could show you a photo of that, of what I decided for the composition. Okay, I think the roots are combed out. I need to wash them. Yeah, so there's a lot of new roots growing out here, which is interesting. But there's a good radial root base down here at the base. The one root is still quite thick here, but I don't think that'll matter. I think it'll get covered with these finer roots and look really good. Yeah, so I'll wash this in my bucket of water. Okay, I'll take the Benjamina out. In goes the Natal ficus with its aerial roots. Now I need to take these air plants out too. I don't know if they root in place or what they do, but they seem quite well attached. There. I think they get little roots that grow around the branches. I'll just set those aside. Okay, I'll get rid of the old soil there, clear the bench off, and then we'll have a look at the tree and how it fits on the temple. Okay, here is my tree. Now, this tree, it was fairly bare of branches on the one side, and I believe that was the side I wanted to put against the temple like this, because it almost follows the contour of the temple. Here is a look at the tree roughly positioned against the temple here. So it'll grow over top of this one entranceway. The roots will grow down around it. And you can see how the tree kind of hugs the shape of the temple. And all these branches kind of grow out into the sunlight there. Off to the side. Yeah, so I think it'll be quite nice. And I'll try and get the tree like right up against the temple. And then we'll start the aerial roots kind of hugging the temple, growing around it. I just checked that reference photo, so I had the tree positioned closer to the temple, almost like right up against it like this. Like that. Yeah, that'll look really good. It'll have the roots. So what I didn't want was the tree blocking the temple, the view of it. So the tree is kind of growing behind, so the temple's still visible, and you see all these roots growing over the temple. That's going to look really good. Oh, it's staying in position even, like that. So I guess that was meant to be. Yeah, that looks really good. I like that. So what I'll have to do, I'll have to mix up some muck
which is bonsai soil, and then I mix in some organic soil with it, and it makes a muck, so you can like make a ball out of the muck and it holds its shape, and then you can position it around the temple, because all these roots will have to be in soil until they grow down into the base layer of soil in the pot. So I'm going to put the tree back in the water. I don't know how much time I'll get later tonight to work on this, but yeah, we'll see. I am back once again. It is starting to get dark out, so I'm going to put some drainage screens in the bottom of the pot and fill it up with a base layer of soil. And I think that's going to be it for tonight. I don't want to rush the planting of the tree. There's going to be a lot of root pruning to kind of fit the tree right against the temple. And I'll have to mix up that special soil and figure out how to hold the tree in place. So I don't want to rush that, so that'll be coming in part 2. All right, I'll get the drainage screen in place. I'll cut a fairly large piece of screen and position it underneath those blocks of wood, and one for the other side. I'll put this one in here. And then I'll fill the pot about halfway up with soil. That'll allow me to kind of get the roots down, and then I can bury it with the rest of the soil. All right, here I go with the soil. And then I'll make sure the soil is underneath the wood here. Because as I said, the bottom of the pot is kind of dished. It's not a flat bottom to it. So there's some spaces in there. Fill that up more. I think 2 scoops will do for this section. Alright, I'll add some soil to this back section now. Okay. So now it's got my base layer of soil in place. I've got just enough time before it gets dark to water all my trees outside. I made a lot of progress in the Ta Prohm temple today. I didn't get any trees planted yet, but that'll be coming tomorrow, so it'll be very exciting. That's all for today. I'm Nigel Saunders. Thanks for joining me in the Bonsai Zone.